Hi and welcome to Spiritual Link, the podcast. A podcast about how developing spiritual well-being can help you in your daily life and how that can enhance your confidence in who you are and what you are. The podcast is hosted by Ines and Tor. Ines is a development medium with over 30 years of experience in the field, and Tor has been her apprentice since 2013. On the podcast, we are going to cover a broad range of topics such as meditation, chakras, intuition, and crystals, only to mention a few. In this episode, we are going to talk about the color band and chakra orange. You can support us by sharing the episode on your social media channels, subscribing to our podcast, and leaving a review. Remember, you can always find us on @spirituallinkco on Instagram.
Thor, how nice to see you today or this week on this nice warm summer's day.
Lovely to see you again as well. Was it like this last Friday as well, wasn't it? It was like boiling hot last Friday.
Boily hot in your room.
Yes, that's the thing. Because I slept really poorly again last night, and I think it must have something to do with the heat because that's the only common denominator. How has your week been?
No, it's been fine. It has not been bad at all. Thank you very much. Yes, a lot of sort of soul searching, as we all do. You know, the times are rough. It's not just the COVID. Then we hear about Beirut and other people's, dilemmas. It's just, it's ongoing.
Yeah, it's been
There's smaller things in life. I have a friend, then everything was all right. Then the car didn't start, so they need a new car. Then the washing machine broke. Everything just sort of seems to mushroom out of these tragedies.
Yeah, it's been a tough week.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I've been really looking forward to it because with these colors, it's very, very interesting. I've been looking into it, of course, and I'm looking forward to chatting about it and also getting your views again because you're very color orientated as well.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, as I mentioned, color incorporates so many more things, and because what is things is vague, isn't it? But this is a spiritual link. And so the dialogue that we're using comes from that angle. But it is very much also an everyday occurrence that we are totally and need to be aware of colors. When we talk of colors, as I mentioned last week, we're talking about a cosmic energy. And that comes and that keeps everything moving. Cosmic energy is an electrical force, and we have an electrical force. If someone's heart stops, what do the medical profession use? They use electricity to start the heart again. If it's on a cold day, if we rub our feet on a carpet and stick out our finger and connect with someone else, there's a spark of electricity. And that, of course, is cosmic energy. It is us. It keeps the body moving. It keeps the whole world and the whole atmosphere is moved by exactly the same color therapy. So when we talk of, say, this brilliant white light that you see at the point of death, we see in meditations, we go to the white light. The brilliant white light is a radiant cosmic symphony, meaning that all colors are playing very much in tune, playing the totalness of a tune. And then when that is done, your chakrams are open and in harmony or balanced. Harmony or balance is the same situation. So color of the white light is the cosmic energy, which is perfectly formed. Color brings sound, and that can create the perfect radiant symphony. So today I'm going to concentrate a little bit more on sound and our musicians and creative individuals. Before I get to that, I just want to say that water is a prism, oil, some crystals, also prisms, It splits the colors. You see the colors reflecting in them. You see colors reflected in water. You see colors reflected in a puddle of oil. You see colors reflected in some of the crystals. In a crystal chandelier, if we take that, if you tap one crystal, the corresponding crystals would reply with their own note. If one crystal is triggered off, so it will in turn trigger off all of the rest, and the color spectrums alternating together. Color relates to everyone, and everything and how we speak also relates to the color situation. So when we talk of color bands, in the colors in certain color bands, the color bands contain the chakras, of course. We are talking about the totalness of life. So as I mentioned, I'd like to concentrate or give a little bit of information to those wonderful artists who are possibly already seeing color in the music that they are creating. If we go back a few hundred years, the Russian composer Scriabin, as only one of them, also saw the colors and then played the colors as well, because the sound or the way that individual perceives color is then translated into an understandable form for that personality. In his case, Scriabin's case, it was obviously the composing of music. So in our daily life, of course, there are many, many different types of music, different types of music in all of our minds, but with our wonderful international cosmopolitan cultures all over the world, we tend to mix, and we also tend to listen to each other's music more, not just from one country to the next. But all of these different types of music denote different areas or bring to one's mind the different forms of color. So for instance, if a music comes from the warmer countries, it is very discernible from that which comes from a European country, two very different nations. As I said, it is not that way. It's not that cut and dry anymore, because we mix our foods, our philosophies, our religious beliefs, and also music so very much. And so one would understand that the music comes from a hot climate, and therefore it is a different form of music, which is very easily recognized. Now then, when we get music that is very light, uplifting, so it reminds us of the totalness of color, perhaps of sunshine. So we can be very aware of that type of a lilt, where, for instance, if we think of the color of red, that type of music, that note, would perhaps come from Africa, Egypt, West Indies, hot places. The color is expressed in the music. It is a warm music from Africa, from Egypt, from West Indies. It's warm and heavy. We concentrate on red last week, but when I concentrated on the red, I heard a bass note. And that bass note reminds me of the base chakra, which is the color of red. It's a heavy tone. Now with the orange, which we're talking about this week, I got a bass sound, because I'm dealing with the chakrams as well, bass sound, but not the monotonous sound as with the red. The orange is more fluctuating. The orange has 2 syllables. Now as we go up, we will come back to the orange. With the yellow, I get 2 beats. The bass note is always there. It is the heartbeat of life, of the world. So the bass note is always there, and then 2 beats. The 2 beats ending off in the bass. The bass chakra is always there. because it is the power source. You will always hear it through everything. Now then, if we move up, the green isn't like the other three because it is the balance, it is the fulcrum. So what we have there is a constant. It's a constant tone, like a balance. It's a consistency, it's a balance. It's more like a lilt. So from the base chakra, we have the 7 chakrams, which obviously includes the base. And if you think that each one that you step up is like the notes of the musical scale, and you will get some variations perhaps, the last and the first, and the first and the last. But you will get that variation in sound, which can then come to the top with the syndrome of that perfect white light, which is then the cosmic harmony. All of those together is a tone in itself. Musical scales, if we think of those, if you think a low note, let's say the low note, you have C, then you have the middle C, then you have the next note up, and the next one, it takes it higher and higher and higher. But there will be variances of those tones. They're tones, not actually notes, but tones. And if you think what you've been doing, what we have been doing with the chakrams, it has been from very low, then a little higher, the base is low, a little higher, and then a little higher still. And then as we come to the green, it has been yet higher. It is a very strong sound wave that is picked up not simply with color, but also with hearing and feeling that vibration, which brings color into your mind. It's an internal situation which brings color into our mind. You do not necessarily see them always within a mind, but you can feel them. Simply because the vibrations of the color is being sent to you from the ethers, from the atmosphere, from that cosmic energy. And that is then being picked up and interpreted into color or a sound. Sound is also picked up in an understandable form. So these great composers, the composers of now, everyone is being guided, everyone is being directed, and this essence of direction, the notes, the new forms of music and so on, all comes from this cosmic energy. It is all sound vibration. Sound vibration is another form of identification. Color also travels on the same beams of waves as it were as sound. Not the same, but very similar. So if we say we have an old-fashioned black and white TV set, that does not pick up color, simply because the instrument is not geared up to it. And so we are also sometimes a black and white TV. Some of us can pick up the color, some of us cannot pick up the color. However, if we're not able, if we are a black and white TV, what we can do, we can still smell the color. We can also hear the color through its vibration. So what we're actually saying, what I've not gone into, is the color application, the color recognition from ourselves to our body is all a form of self-healing. We are able to resuscitate our body just by getting a feel of what is the matter. Last week, we did mention of within the meditative state, as you open the chakrams, where do you feel something is not quite right? Amiss. It's just amiss. It's just a feeling, nothing else. But what we're able to do is to strengthen or to reduce the pressure of any color. All we have to think about, it does not have to become complicated. It's just a matter, is it too light Or is it too dark? Is the color, we're trying to balance the color through ourselves by opening the chakrams. So it would be as well to try and find, when we meditate, perhaps one or the other colors. Try to think of that one or the other color and see what you feel with it. Is there a sound? Do you hear it? Do you perhaps smell it? Or perhaps you just want, if you have piano, computer, get the C, get the middle C. What does the bass sound like? Hum it to yourself. Become aware of the color. Become color conscious of your surroundings, of your environment. It doesn't matter if you have a very small space or very large space. Be aware of your clothing as well, the colors that you're wearing. Are they uplifting? Do you need something else? All of that is color healing. So as we come to the color of orange, which is the second chakra, it is also called the lower body. The red, last week, was the astral body. Orange is the lower body. It is either the spleen or the stomach. Some individuals also say it's the sacral chakra, but we're now dealing with words. We're interested in the color. What we are prone to, if you have too much of that color of orange, what we are prone to is literally, would you believe, because the chest is not around our belly button, is the chest area, phlegmy cough, rheumatism, asthma, and even shortness of breath. We are prone to that. Now, if we come to rheumatism, as I said with red last week as well, rheumatism often forms, if it's in the joints or if a gout, such as in your toe, the pain is formed by small crystal deposits. Literally, you could feel them. They're all crunchy. Crystal deposits in certain parts of the joints or even in your toe. So they can be gently removed by applying that color. Let's say a bit of colored paper, crepe paper, anything like that. You might also find an interest in oranges. Which is of course a fruit, but also vegetables, all of those situations. The body does try to help itself as well. With the color of orange, of course, because we all see colors differently, there are also all sorts of different hues with all of these colors across the orange spectrum. They range from salmon pink, coral, amber, saffron, all sorts of variations to that same color. Now, the orange, before I get to the curative properties of the orange actually is a very important color because it controls so much of the mind. And as I mentioned before, the mind is also in control of the body. So orange has much control of the body, the mind, and the nervous system attached to it. The curative properties would be for the mind and the calming of the mind. Blue is also very calming, but we're talking about a psychic science. So we're mixing the one color can marry up and work together to create a certain outcome. But this time, what I'm saying, the orange is calming for the mind, making the mental attitudes more strong. It is also used, so we're mental attitudes upstairs, isn't it? And now we're moving down to the kidney areas. And that also helps the kidney areas, such as the free flow from the kidneys. If you have kidney problems, orange, very powerful. Also, from the gallstones, bladder area, phlegm. Now, phlegm is, of course, further up. Can you see that it is not a psychic science that relates to not just one band being stuck in one area, the phlegm area and the lungs, but also, would you believe, in other areas such as epilepsy. As I've mentioned many times before, this is self-help, but never to eliminate or not use the professional advice of our wonderful medical profession, because they're also guided. So when I mention the kidney area, it strengthens that area, the free flow of excrement and everything that moves through the kidneys. Very, very important. The poor individuals that have to go through dialysis is horrific. Anyway, it helps the kidneys to be in perfect conditions. And orange would be the color to help it to do so. So help it, in addition to what your doctor or the medical profession says, you're on a sure thing. Asthmatics would be held, the asthmatics would be, say, with more within the lungs, and would also benefit from that orange ray, from the power of the orange ray. And how do we use that? It's not just sticking a bit of orange crepe, let's say, onto your chest. It is applied from the waist down. It will be applied to the feet, and then being absorbed, slowly moving the orange up through the body. And that way, also as it moves up, and then the lungs are just above the belly button. So all of that would get an orange. And importantly enough also, the orange can help the thinking and put right the mental anomalies, meaning if we are stressed, if we have a lot of anxiety, orange can certainly help. I'm looking around and I've got it here. This citrine, if anybody. I'm holding a citrine, which people may or may not see, and a citrine, and that is very powerful to help in those areas. A small collection of various crystals in time, if possible, is very, very helpful. Anyway, now that orange is known as the wisdom ray for the reason that if you take orange, you split it up, what colors have you got? Red and yellow make orange. So if we talk of red and yellow, it is the kundalini. Yellow is the spirit. The kundalini is the base chakra. Yellow is the spirit. So we are talking of a very powerful wisdom ray. So if we are healing ourselves, helping ourselves with the red and the yellow rather than the orange. So what we're able to do if we have red is very difficult to get. Red is so expensive. Most people don't have it. So a pink quartz would do fine. So if we're using those two colors, what we're doing is just giving the same amount of energy, cosmic energy, but just using two crystals, the power of the pink and then the power of the orange together separately. And both those two situations will give strength and also clearing. So if something's wrong with your kidneys, we first of all have to clear the sediments and the excrement and the waste away from them. So those two colors would clear and then strengthen with, of course, with the help of the medical profession. And that, of course, helping the body to regain its strength and equilibrium. In the same way, it would the mind as well. Wisdom comes from the inside. This, again, we're talking about the wisdom ray of orange. It is a product of the inner self, and that it is therefore engendered through the mind, through the body, and of course through the spirit. The orange ray can bring forward the wisdom of self, other than, of course, healing. Very important. Wisdom is a product not only of the inner mind, but also the ability to think, the thinking mind, therefore a clear mind. And that clear mind comes from the meditative state, allowing all irrelevances, everything is irrelevant. When you are giving precious time, which you cannot come back, which you cannot pay for, we cannot buy time. So if you're making time to meditate, if you're making time to listen to this, allow your mind at least the freedom to get rid of any difficulties that are in your mind. They can always come back to you. Give yourself that tiny little bit of respite. Give your strength to your mind, give that strength to your body, and just wait and see what happens. I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised at the outcome. We're not talking about something, oh, well, if, in 5 years' time or in a month's time, you might see something happening. It's not, it's immediate because you want it to happen. Of course, we're also talking orange, red. We're starting to talk about food as well. Food, try to move. Not all of us have the luxury of going to the gyms, the luxury of walking, the luxury even of moving our back or our arms or our hands. We don't all have that luxury. So I'm not going to say, yes, get out if you can. However, if this is the karmic pattern where you cannot physically get out, you're still able to perhaps, hopefully, be allowed to sit in the sun and to breathe in that cosmic energy that surrounds the world. And you pick the best bits of that positivity in order to help yourself. All we are doing in our spiritual link, we are just touching, skimming over, giving you a taste of the immense possibilities and the enormous amount of information there is. Just with this color that I've briefly gone over, we could talk about full-time a good week. And as I mentioned last time, if you're really interested in colors, go to the library, go online, get some literature on the colors, see how you feel about it. Everyone will have different names for different chakrams, fine. But remember, we're only dealing with names. We're dealing with a color, and that's what we're interested in, to give you information about a color. How you use it and how you interpret it is then your individual choice.
Thank you, Ines. That
Yeah.
was really educational and
Yeah.
interesting. I suppose one of the fascinating bits about me, one of the fascinating bits that I picked up on, which I suppose some people maybe in the spiritual space doesn't always think about, is that even our doctors are guided, right?
Yes.
You know, we can't just all default to color healing, because doctors are also guided and they're equally good at helping us. They're like complementing each other, right?
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. We can work together beautifully.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautifully. And
Yeah.
many doctors are also they have a lot of foresight, and they do not, it is very fair enough. The medical profession has had a very hard fight to get away from medieval practices. Not saying that anything is wrong, but to justify through proof that something actually works, and not just say, oh, well, this works for my granny, maybe it'll work for you. They're not dealing in areas like that. So very often we are allowed, not necessarily when it comes to herbs, because a lot of herbal medications can interfere with with the medicine that we are being given. So always, at all times, to always consult a doctor about what you're doing, what you're proposing to do. And then, I mean, breathing and color, of course, we're talking about something very different. As potent, it does not always have to be imbibed in the form of potions.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I suppose there was another lovely thing which you said, is that regardless of, I suppose, what is it called these days, like able-bodied, if you're not
Yeah,
able-bodied, you can
yes,
still go out and, well,
yeah,
maybe someone can roll you out and you can still sit in the sun and
oh,
soak
yes,
in those positive energies that exist within the cosmic energy that we
absolutely,
talk about,
yes,
right? Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because I see every week, I see individuals who are completely either bedridden or they are sitting in a chair, and that's where they will sit for
Yeah.
12 hours a day, and that is it. Maybe the television is on. I don't watch television that much, but I do know the news at 8 in the morning is the same as the news at 8 at night.
Yeah.
So the variation is zero. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful to be able to go out to exercise
Yeah. No, me
in
too.
my time. So, but everyone, regardless of our karmic path, nothing is ever a punishment. And I will be, and I know many spiritualists or spiritual leaders will contradict me and say it is a punishment for past sins or past crimes. It is not. No one is punished. It is a learning process. a learning process that everyone goes through. And if we realize that we're